there, ref. That's he got the ball.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Jack and Dave here to give our Twitter reacts after the 1-1 draw with Eintracht Frankfurt. Title of the stream, I think, is simple, really. Felt like we played well, felt like we deserved to win that game at the end of the day, but we didn't get over the line. We weren't able to do it, and so there's going to be massive work to be done in Frankfurt. We're still in the tie. We're still in this one, and we'll see if Spurs can deliver the next Thursday night. We're going to start off first with player ratings, something that we're going to try to continue to do for all these Twitter reacts, especially the ones that are live, where we can take a look back at maybe the game, take a look back at some of the individual moments from players. Please follow us on Twitter. You can see it right there, the handle at theirishyid, the Irish Hotspur. Pretty simple there. So please follow us over there. Get into the polls, get into the votes, and we can get your sort of thoughts on maybe some of these player ratings. Unfortunately, Twitter only allows me 4 different numbers or 4 different options per player. So a bit of my own bias does end up, sort of playing a part in this. But Dave, I mean, you and I were saying, after the watch along, maybe calmer heads will prevail to an extent after. I mean, how do you feel the next day? I mean, I think title of the stream for me is we deserve to win, but we didn't. And work has to be done now in Frankfurt.
Yeah, look, I still sort of feel the same to a certain degree. I think we played some of our best football in quite some time, actually. I think it's one of them games where I don't think you can really pull out the tactics and that too much. But I think, it comes back down to what I've been saying for a long time now. We just don't have that clinical player that can step up, and be that match winner. We just don't have that guy in the team. And I think that was clearly evident last night. We've got a lot of players that try, huff and puff and they try hard, but we just don't have that guy that can stand up in the moment. But in general, I still feel the same. Look, we go out to Frankfurt, there's no away goals, so, it's just 90 minutes of football. I think if we can replicate a similar performance, I think we give ourselves, a massive chance. So, yeah, look, it's just hard because I still can't get over helping that, that maybe it might come back to bite us, like the Liverpool Carabao Cup semi-final, where if Porro would have took that chance, could we have maybe got over the line? It's a bit of a harder task for Liverpool, and I just worry about their atmosphere and that affecting us to a large degree. But at the end of the day, we're still in it. We come out of it with hope, and I'm just a little let down that we didn't take it at the end of the day. We didn't go on and win the game. There's a little bit of unluckiness towards it as well in terms of Bentancur and Bergvall, but that forward line just isn't good enough. I'm sorry, it's just not, and that's where I've sort of fallen at today, Jack.
It does feel eerily similar to the Liverpool one, where we were the better team. We deserved to win. I mean, we did beat Liverpool at the end of the day, but it did feel like we had that opportunity to at least have a 2-goal cushion against Liverpool. This felt similar, where we were the better team. We deserved a cushion of some kind. And then we're going to be, like the Liverpool game, going to a tough away atmosphere where the fans are going to really get behind those players. And you do sort of fear for the worst. And unfortunately, it does feel eerily similar to that. But there's still every chance that, we learn from that lesson against Liverpool. And at the end of the day, when we watch this Frankfurt team play, they seem like a decent side, but I don't think they're nearly as good as Liverpool. So we'll see if Spurs can spur a similar performance, and maybe we do actually put away those chances. Not saying we will, but maybe we do, and we do end up, doing the hard task of pulling off something over there. So it feels very similar to Liverpool.
Yeah, 100%. I think the right words maybe I'm looking for is missed opportunity, Jack. I think, to a large degree. I think that's the words I'm trying to find.
And then it also just quickly felt like, during the halftime, there was a bit of the PSG sort of Aston Villa vibe to it, where Frankfurt were just sitting behind the ball, looking to try to, hit us on the counter and hurt us that way. And then we really went on in that second half to dominate the game, kind of like PSG did against Aston Villa. It's just, you look at the class and the world-class players that they had. They went on and won that game, 3-1 very deservedly. And it felt that way for us, where we could have gone on easily and have won that game 3-1, 4-1, something like that too. So I don't know. There's just kind of interesting that it feels so similar to the Liverpool game, but then also there were some similarities with our game and the game that you and I watched between Aston Villa and PSG as well. It's just PSG, they have the difference makers, like you said. They have the guys that can put away, chances, can sort of take the game by the scruff of the neck. And also, too, it's just sometimes, even just the sitters, like, does that even require, a world-class player? Probably not. It just requires just a player that has I guess, the concentration levels to be able to do it, i.e. Brendan Johnson, Mickey Van de Ven, with those 2 chances there to give us that cushion. But we're going to get into it. We're going to break it all down for you guys. Really appreciate all the support, all the love that you guys have been showing us. Another tough week ahead. And this is what we live for at the end of the day. I'm going to greet just quickly stateside footy. Good to see you, Steven, saying good morning, fellas. I can't be mad. After all, we did find a result. We also seem to have found our shooting boots in the second half against a quality opponent, which is a far cry from last month. Did we find our shooting boots, Stephen? I don't think we did, Matt. I think we found our creative boots. We found our creativity. We found our free-flowing football back. We found our spark, to create chances. But the shooting boots were not there, man. Only ended 1-1 at the end of the day, thanks to a very, very skillful finish from Pedro Porro. Had it not been for Pedro Porro, we could technically be 1-0 down in this tie, unfortunately.
I think for me, look, I think what I seen last night is like, don't get me wrong, I do understand the fans' frustrations last night of not winning the game, but I do think there was maybe an overreaction one side on the negativity, but also, I see on, coming out today that maybe there's an overreaction on the positivity side. Like, I get getting gassed up that we created more chances than what we're used to seeing largely in the majority of games this season. But we can't gloss over the fact that we still don't have that killer instinct. We don't have that killer up front. That, what would you say? What's the right word?
Clinical, really, right? Just anybody that can.
That makes the most of the moments when we were on top of games. We don't have that guy that can, like you said, be clinical, Jack, and put the game in Tottenham's favour. Stand up and be counted. We don't have that guy in the forward line. We can't gloss over that. We can't keep sitting here pretending that this is a good enough forward line going into next season on what, in order to match the fans' ambitions, which is winning trophies. This forward line will not win you trophies. It needs more investment. Like, we can sit here and make all the excuses for Dom Solanke in the world. We can sit here and make all the excuses for Johnson in the world. We can even sit here and make all the excuses for Son in the world. The reality is, it's not working. Yeah. We can say, oh, it's just down to system alone. It's not. It's not just down to system. It also comes down to the quality. It's not there, and we can't gloss over the fact it needs more reinvestment this summer. I'm sorry, it's not good enough.
Yeah, just slight maybe disagreement on the word choice there, Steven. Love you, my man. But yeah, I would say the creative minds were there in that game. The free-flowing football was there. Shooting boots, I don't know if were there in that game, unfortunately, my man. Spotlight Spurs, good to see you, my friend. Really do appreciate you. Custard is in the house as well. David W. The David Army just continues to grow. Big up to you, David Army, fellow Dave. Shemi Tan is in the house. Afternoon, Jack and Dave. Hope you are both enjoying your day. Well, at least we didn't lose like most home games. We had chances, hit the post, crossbars, goalkeeper. So we need really strong performance versus Wolves. Wonder if you just sort of go with a different lineup against Wolves, make sure that you don't have any injuries of any kind. I potentially would try to give guys like Richarlison, a chance to see if he can maybe play on Thursday night, or various other guys, maybe try to rotate them in there. And to be honest, maybe still players that have a chance of playing Thursday night. You don't just play just anybody. But yeah, I would say, Shem, maybe you don't go with your strongest lineup against Wolves. But Dave and I will do a members preview, that sort of thing, and we'll give you our thoughts on that one. Simon Gooding is in the house. Good to see you, Simon. Limpy Down Under is in here as well. It's upsetting we drew after playing better, but this squad is not the same as other away days in Europe. We still have a big chance, 100%, man. We are absolutely still 100%. in this one. And
that's something I was trying to convey last night, despite the disappointment, we're still in it.
Still in it. And we played well enough to win. So, you just continue to say that. You're like, well, we deserve to win. It's just what you have to keep saying. It's not like you can say, maybe we got lucky, or maybe it's, 50-50 on this one. No, we deserve to win that game. Ryan G saying, good afternoon, lads. Good to see you, Ryan G.
Right up.
And then Dark Sun G, Limpy Down Under saying, I would love to see an Irish Hotspur vid on which 5 takes our penalties if it ever comes to that. That's an interesting question, even for the pre-match build-up, as well. And maybe that's something we can incorporate into maybe some sort of video, beforehand. Dark Sun G saying, looking at Bergvall's development, he was a real bargain signing. Also, we are lucky Bergvall chose us over Barcelona. He becomes team grown, right? Homegrown, Dave, with Bergvall? Probably for Premier League. I would doubt for European football, unless I'm mistaken.
I'm not sure what way it works, but I know one of them. If you've played with the club between, for 3 years before you reach 21, I think there is an element where you can become homegrown for one of the competitions. I'm not quite sure which one it is. Maybe someone in the chat might know, exactly what it is. I might be able to let you know there, Dark Sunji. But I do think you're right on that. And look, I think what we're seeing from Bergvall right now, I think if I'm correct, did Glenn Hoddle say something similar
Yeah,
last
no,
night, or
I have
someone
that
did?
saved. Yeah, I have that saved. Yeah.
Where I've said I think we've got one hell of a player on our hands. I just think the final third is an area where the guy needs to improve, and I think once he does that, I think we've got one hell of a player on our hands. And I think Glenn Hoddle said something similar last night. You wait till that guy gets to 22, 23, 24 years of age, his potential is absolutely insane. The player that he can become, I just do think that maybe final third is where he developed, where he kicks on and becomes the player that we all want him to be. Because I'd argue a player that likes to get on the ball in midfield, get turned, break the lines, can take players out the game, can score goals. We've seen him being able to switch play at times and that as well. I think he's a great passer of the ball. I just think in the final third, when you're looking for that ball to be threaded through or that final finish, I think that's where he lets himself down a little bit this season. But at the end of the day, he's only 18. He's come from the Swedish second division. There's always going to be that element to it to a certain degree. But I agree with you. I think we've got one hell of a player on our hands here for sure in that midfield going forward.
Yeah.
I think same with Graham Papamatosardo as well. I think three young great midfielders there
Yeah,
for the
definitely,
future.
definitely agree there. I think if I remember during my years of doing this now with Dave, Dark Sun G, the lesson I have learned is that there is very, very specific requirements in order to get, homegrown for the European competitions, those homegrown academy players. It's a very tough one to try to fill, requires a lot of different sort of qualities and specifications for it. And often it's difficult to have someone come in, into the club at a very, very young age and then play often enough, to then qualify. But then when it comes to the Premier League, the requirements and everything are nowhere near as strict. It's just very strict when it comes to European competition. But something that we can worry about later on. But he's been another example of just a diamond in the rough, type of signing by Spurs. Or even if he was someone that people were well aware of, Spurs have once again, brought in an absolute gem for no money at all. Really, him and I'd say, Pop Matasar, been brought in for practically no money when you really think about it. Vicario as well, another example of a guy brought in for no money. Bentancur, I know he was more of an established player, but still, the price that we paid for that guy after the performance he gave us last night. It's something that you and I have bonded over, Dark Sun G. It's just one of my favorite things about Tottenham Hotspur is that we are to this day still so good at finding, these gems for no money at all that we can bring into the team. And
So
Bergvall has done exceptionally. He's done far better than probably most people would have imagined this year. Yeah.
So basically, yeah, I'm correct. So basically, in order to become Premier League homegrown, which is he can, you need 3 years at the club before 21. And traditionally it's easier for your academy players because they've been at the club since 16. But if you're playing a player at 18, rather than loan him out, he basically needs to be in the first team for them 3 years. And so far, Bergvall seems like he's going to be. So I think if he stays in this squad next season, the season after Dark G, then I think when he reaches 21, he can become homegrown on the Premier League list, but he will not qualify for homegrown on the Europa League list or on the Europe list.
All right. Dark Sun G, as always, brother, really do appreciate your support for us, my man. Like we said, in the title, we deserve to win. Unfortunately, we didn't. And so now there's work to be done in Frankfurt, but we are absolutely still in this one. And I'm looking forward to another dramatic night on Thursday night.
Big up Spotlight on Spurs as well. Good to see you, Luke. But yeah, Dark Sun G, big night next Thursday. Let me know what you think of last night's game, Angel, and what you thought of the performance. And do you think we can do it away from home, Dark Sun G? Big yourself up. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. How are you feeling amongst these times with Tottenham at the minute, my man?
Hey man, we're still in European competition compared to Liverpool as well, so I bet your dad is jealous at the moment. Swim Master saying, I was adding frequently in last night's chat. I thought we needed a 2-goal cushion and was frustrated with the late subs. Richie on at the 88th minute was crazy too late. Other subs were too late. I would agree with that at the end of the day. Swim Master, do appreciate your support.
Again, I do see a lot of people seem to be split on that though, Jack.
I still stand by what I said. I think the subs were not the total reason that we didn't win the game. You still
100%.
have to look. But we said that a million times last night, and I'll continue to make that clear. Like, I don't think the subs were the reason we didn't win. Certainly, though, I think they could have come sooner. And then also, I feel like taking Madison off for me, it's just people have said, oh, he was tiring. I don't think he was. And then also, even if he was, I think he could still play that killer ball, or he maybe could still have that devastating bit of quality. We needed to try to push just for that lead there and for that win. And I just think having a guy like him who has an X factor, who has a bit of magic in him, I think would have been very good to bring on or keep in the game. Sorry. And the ones that we did bring in, they still needed to kind of warm themselves up into the game. And they were only given so much time to do that, like 10 minutes, really. So I'm not sure, about the subs still. I don't think they were done well. Yeah.
Just to
It
maybe
was
give the
split,
other,
yeah.
maybe to give the other flip side of the coin from what I've maybe read and heard, since then on the subs, and other people going like, if they were in his position and the game was going well, they wouldn't make subs. And I think it comes down to maybe sort of your feeling and how you would approach it at the minute, because look, I sort of disagree with that. I'm more on your side of things and Swim Master side of things, Jack, where it's sort of like, I do think, for the first 15 minutes after halftime, up until around 60 minutes, we sort of did control that. But then that 10-minute period, or there was a 10-15-minute period after that, where they were starting to get a bit more joy. And that is where I would have made the subs to regain the upper hand a lot quicker than what we did in that second half. And I think that's where I would have made them earlier, personally.
Yeah, same here.
But Postecoglou did explain it, though. He said, he said he felt they worked very hard down that left-hand side, and that was his reason for changing it.
Yeah.
I don't know what people make of that.
I think that's why some people felt like, maybe guys like Madison and Sonny were tiring. Hennessy, good to see you, sir. Thanks for supporting the channel as well.
Big up, Hennessy.
Afternoon to you. Happy Friday to you, my friend. Jay Hill's in here. What's good? Big up to you, Jay Hill. Bam Bam Bigaloo. Great name. MV Joker Davis. Eddie, how are you, sir? Good to see you, Eddie. Ed Meister. And then Artist T saying, I don't think we deserve to win. Come on, Artist T. Come on, man. Like, we did deserve to win that game. Unless it's a botched referee decision at the end of the game, I don't think anyone deserves to win. Madison was taken off too early, as usual. Our only real creative player. I feel like the deserve to win mindset is a bit arrogant. I mean, you look at the XG, you would say that we deserve to win. You look at all the metrics of stats, regardless of analysis, it would say that Spurs deserve to win. You saw a gaping chance from Brennan Johnson that he should have put in the back of the net. Mickey Van de Ven had a header. He headed it off his own foot or something, and couldn't somehow tap that away. It almost looked harder to miss than to score it. I think you could say that Spurs at least deserve to win that game 2-1, man. Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, Artist, I just have to disagree, man.
I just find it, a bit contradictory to a certain degree, because at the same time, you could sit there and say we deserve to win mindset is arrogant, but at the same time, why does everyone want Postecoglou sacked? Because we think we should be winning games of football. So, I mean, I do find it a bit contradictory to a certain degree. You can't say, on one hand, get Ange Postecoglou gone because we should be winning more games than what we're winning. And then when we actually play well, create more than enough chances to go and win a game and don't, then turn around and go, oh, the deserve to win mindset is arrogant. For instance, if I was to sit here and defend Postecoglou with that logic to Artist T, he'd be the first one to cane me if I was to sit there with that logic going, well, look at differently with Ange Postecoglou, because the mindset that we deserve to win is arrogant. Give him some leeway, give him some grace. It's such, I like you, Artist T, I have good respect for you and I like these back and forths, but I do find it's a statement used to cherry pick an argument, because I would say if I was to use that in the other way around, you would go absolutely ballistic at me.
I think we could absolutely agree on Artist T. We don't have the clinical players to put away the majority of the chances that we create. So maybe it isn't that much of a surprise that we didn't actually, let's say win this 4-1, 5-1, because we just don't have those guys that have that clinical edge to them. We don't have real killers, real finishers in the team. But it's just watching the game, man, just objectively, like you would say that Spurs, had the majority of the chances and the better chances and had some gaping chances to score, rattled the woodwork a couple of times. I mean, we were peppering the goal. I mean, the goalkeeper as well had a man of the match performance, had a man of the match performance of the Europa League. I think he was given one of the highest man of the match ratings of any of the players in the Europa League of any of the games that day. So I think you could, I don't know, man. I just think Spurs did deserve to win. But I would agree with Spurs don't have the clinical players to get over the line sometimes, So
I do agree with that in terms of look with with our forward line it's not good enough and on that basis I understand that but I do think overall the context of the game and the chances that we create for either teams you would I would argue I think Frankfurt were lucky to come out with a draw last night. They had one chance and they took it last night. It was clinical, don't get me wrong, but we created a lot more than what they did last night, and I think that does show to me that term the team that creates more sort of genuinely does deserve to win the game. You don't always get what you deserve, don't get me wrong, but I do think we done more than enough to try and win it.
Yeah.
Also, big up Archer as well. He says Madison was taken off too early, as usual. Our only real creative player. Yeah, and Archer, do you know what? That's one thing that's baffling me. I just look back at it, right? And I look back at, I think, would Pochettino take off of Madison if he was chasing a game? No. Would Jose Mourinho take off of Madison if he was chasing a game? No. Would Conte? Again, I don't think he would. And I just don't understand the thinking behind taking him off. I can understand. Like, earlier on in the season when maybe he wasn't pulling his weight, I can understand. But I think Madison is pulling his weight lately, and I just don't understand why he took him off this game and the Chelsea game. Because I would like to think it's what we bought him for, so that when we are chasing games or the game is level and we're looking for a winner, that he's the guy that's going to find that pass. That's exactly what we paid for. But we're not giving them the opportunity to prove that he can do that.
I'm really am nailing this down. I do think Ange is developing some sort of fetish or something for taking, Madison off, in times when Madison, is potentially going to become the match winner. It's like he just gets a hard on for it. I just don't get it at this stage. He just loves to take Madison off at every opportunity, when Madison, I don't think, has shown any signs of tiring. That's just me, though. Big up to you, Archer. Big up to you, Artist T. Legends in the house. Dark Sun G followed up by saying, unlucky in my opinion because we hit the post twice. If it was another day, those would have gone in, especially Ball's shot. Also, the ref has no standard when calling fouls. Believe me. If anyone got a Frankfurt after the game, it was that referee, Dark Sunshine, because that guy, he must have been given something. Maybe he likes, there was some good spicy Polish sausage, good spicy Polish kielbasa, good spicy Polish Frankfurts out there, but that guy, man, he showed some sort of allegiance to that Frankfurt team. I mean, so many times, when we would win the ball back, and then he would just immediately blow it up for them. But then there were times when I think Sonny got dragged down like it was a rugby challenge, and he sort of let it play on. Solanke at one point, had I think it was Robin Koch, had his arm around his neck and then dragged him down by his neck, and there was no yellow card, anything given. He clearly did it as well to stop us from getting him behind. It was just insane, man. Just insane. And also, how many corner decisions did they miss? At least three times I can remember where it clearly went off an Eintracht Frankfurt player and they blew it up for a goal kick. It was dodgy. And what was scary about that is I regarded that Polish referee as actually probably the best referee in football. He's been in, I think, recent European finals, and I think he was in Champions League finals. The guy is regarded as probably one of the best referees out there at the minute, and he had an absolute howler.
Do you know what? I am actually starting to hear more and more pundits. I heard it on the overlap last night. I heard some people on Talk Sport start to allude to it. But Tottenham are not getting the rub of the green when it comes to 50-50 decisions this year. And they're starting to notice it more and more as longer as the season goes on. And I think last night was just another prime example of that. For instance, I think Bentancur came through the back of a player once or twice, but not through the back of him, wrapped his foot around and dislodged the ball. Referee blew up. Their right back took Brennan Johnson out, didn't even touch the ball. Play on. Absolutely madness. And it's just they're the decisions. If you're going to give them one way, then you should be giving them the other way. At one stage they nearly went and scored off the back of Son, literally being wrestled to the ground. Referee just goes play on. Yeah. Some of the decisions I'm seeing against Tottenham Hotspur is absolutely mind-boggling. But to a degree, am I surprised? No. Because I'm not being funny, but you look at most other clubs now, they're all calling out the refereeing decisions. They're all putting the spotlight on it. They're all making sure that it's being drawn attention. And what it does is, when referees go in to manage their games now, they're starting to get the rub of the green with the decisions and stuff like that. But we're too nice. We just accept it. Now, once as Daniel Levy come out about the decisions, managers look to a degree try, but, they get fined and match bans and all this sort of stuff. But you are starting to hear a lot of pundits now starting to talk about the standards of refereeing, saying how genuinely poor it is. It's getting worse. And I agree with that to a large degree, but I just don't think the club helped themselves. You even look at Nottingham Forest, right? Last year they were moaning about all the decisions going against them. They bring in Mark Clattenburg. All of a sudden they're getting the rub of the greens this season, and I'm not saying that's why they're up there, but it helps. It helps you
Yeah.
along your way, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, I just think it's something that we need to highlight. Arsenal, Arteta comes out moaning about the decisions. All of a sudden, in big games, they're getting the calls. We need to put more pressure on it. We need to stop being so nice.
Yeah. Thank you, Dark Sun G, for pointing that out,
Yeah.
though, my man. I mean, the referee is definitely not the reason we lost the game, but Dave and I have been pretty consistent about that. I don't think we've ever said that the referee has been the excuse or the reason that, we didn't get the win. Sorry, I keep saying loss, but we didn't get the win. It just feels like we deserve to win. So I keep, saying, keep accidentally having a Freudian slip and, saying that it was a loss. But so many times we've just said the referee did not help. The referee was not our friend. They did not make things any easier for Tottenham Hotspur. We have not been given any rub of the green, like Dave was talking about. And yeah, man, just those two shots, that hit off the woodwork, from Bentancur and Bergwall, just ridiculous that none of those ended up just slightly tucking in, or the spin of the ball, helps or something there. It's just football gods not on our side. And I agree with Ange Postecoglou on that one this year. Kulu's elusive right foot saying, "Good afternoon, all. I'll have you on while I get some dinner sorted for later." Well, Kulu, you know the rule,
Nice.
my man. You got to let us know. You have to let us know what the dinner plans are, my friend. And appreciate the support.
He's
everybody.
back in training, by the way, man. He's back in training, Kulu, today.
And we need that left foot back. Maybe a little bit of the Kulu right foot could help as well. Big up to you, sir. Thanks for the support as well, Dark Sun G, as well as so many people hopping in here. Paolo Maratti, good to see you, Paolo, saying, "Big up, boys. Just got here, but I think we can all agree and set us up well, and the tactics were good." I agree, man. Completely agree. I don't
think the tactics were an issue last night at all.
I think the tactics as well were the reason we went on to dominate that game in the second half. Deserved, in my opinion, to go on and win the game. But what I will say, questionable maybe in-game management in terms of the substitutions, because Artist T, this is the part I do agree with you, Artist T, saying, "I don't blame Ange for last night, to be fair. Late subs were my only gripe," and I'm consistent on that. I think, the substitutions, in my humble opinion, were not, the right ones, but then also were done, in my opinion, far too late as well. I think he could have made a substitution, someplace sooner. And then he did decide to keep on someone like Brennan Johnson, maybe for that chance that he would end up with a good sort of opportunity to give us that win, give us that lead. And he skied it over the bar. And I think that ended up being maybe a decision that would have haunted him, Ange Postecoglou. I wonder if he would have taken that back, leaving Brennan Johnson on the pitch.
The problem I have with that, though, Jack, problem I have with that is, you're talking about a big European night, right? I can understand the logic that Johnson has scored a lot of goals this season. He's the club's top scorer. But he hasn't done it in a big game this season. Yeah. So on that logic, he should have been hauled off. If you're looking at players for the big game, for the big occasion, that's more up Madison Street. That's more up Sun Street. So on that basis, with the nature of the game, you keep them on. If this was against an Ipswich or something, I go, do you know what? I can understand that. Look at the goals he scores against these sort of teams. Understand that. But when you're talking about a big game, they're your big game players, and you're taking them off.
And then we also have Brian Cole, Dave. Thank you for Brian Cole. Thank you for the support,
Big up, Brian.
my friend.
Good to see you, my man. Great name.
If Madison is tired and can't press effectively, it could lead to giving up a goal or missing or creating a chance with the pressing. I'm not saying I'm right about it at the end of the day, Brian Cole. I just think Madison, what he brings is, if you're looking for a goal, if you want to get that win before you try to defend, your lead in the next leg, I wonder if you do, leave on, your players that are capable of grabbing you that late winner, guys who do have that X factor in him. Madison nearly scored as well. He almost created a chance for himself, fired that great shot at the keeper. Good save once again, from their backup keeper. And he could have maybe put in, a decisive pass, could have slipped someone in, could have played a nice cross into the box, a nice little ball over the top. Plenty of things that I think Madison can do that can perhaps get you over the line in those final stages and minutes. And I've said this as well. Like, I think personally, Madison in recent months, since being criticized by Ange Postecoglou and probably fans as well for maybe his lack of work rate, I think he's improved a lot in that factor. I actually see him getting stuck in plenty of times in games. And I think there's an old narrative with Madison that's probably a true narrative, that he's not really a guy that you would associate with getting up and down, getting stuck in, that type of thing. But I think he's improved dramatically in that area. There's still definitely room for improvement there. But me personally, I'm not seeing him tire nearly as much as maybe some people might be. And also, I just counteract by saying Johnson in particular, I do feel like was tiring because he just continued to just jog up and down, not really busting along, either getting in behind or making sprints at any point,
Mm.
towards the end of the game either. So I would counteract that by saying I don't think Johnson was working that hard to deserve to stay on, or anything like that. So I would rather have the guy who I think is that magic man in midfield, that guy who has that bit of an X factor. Maybe he could have taken off Sonny and then could have had someone else on the left wing, but me personally, it's just the Madison one. I would 100% have kept Madison on for the 90 minutes.
Look, I understand what Brian is saying in the attacking sense of, getting on the press. Where I disagree with the defensive one is that's not what Postecoglou's about, and it's not why he's making substitutions. He's making substitutions because he wants to be offensive, So that's what we need to be looking at when we're looking at the substitutions he made last night. And I just think, again, you're looking at getting something out Solanke. He relies off service. Son, to a large degree, relies off service. And I just think taking off Madison is not the right decision. I would argue, you go back and look at a lot of Bergval's games, the last 10 minutes of games, he gives away a lot of ball and a lot of free kicks because he's tiring. And I would just think he's the one that should have came off last night. I know he took that shot and hit the bar and that, I get it. But I just think, the way usually the last 5-10 minutes of games, he fades out an awful lot. And I just think he should have been the one to come off. At the end of the day, like I said, we bought Madison for this exact reason, to be the difference maker, to pick that lock in tight games, help us go and win a game of football. That's what we bought him for. But it's not just been last night, it was against Chelsea, other games earlier on in the season. Anytime there's an opportunity for him to step up in that moment and say, guys, it's been money well spent. I'm delivering what you bought. We take him off. We don't even give him an opportunity to step up in that moment. And I just think we gave the opportunity to Bergval. And like I said, the biggest thing for me with Bergval is in that final third, picking that pass, finding the back of the net. I think, that's where he struggles. And if we're chasing the game looking for a goal, then why do we keep him on? It just doesn't make logical sense to me on that one. I understand what you're saying, but I don't even think Madison was tired coming off, to be honest. He looked like he had plenty more in the tank to me. And that's just me looking at it. I could be wrong, but that's just what my observation.
Judging by his reaction, too, I imagine that he probably did think he has some still left in the tank. He was well pissed off, for being taken off, too. But Brian, as always, this channel, we try to look at things, from different angles. We also have our strong opinions about stuff. As you always can tell, we don't shout people down or anything. We enjoy the back and forth, and we enjoy having, these type of different opinions. So feel free to, hit back at us. Feel free to let us know, if you think that we might be missing something. And I know there are plenty of people in the chat who I've already seen actually have agreed with the decision of taking off Madison, so thank you for the support, my friend. And, I like it. I like that maybe you feel differently on that one. Big up to you, my friend. Just making sure I'm not missing anybody before we get into these player ratings. MV Joker Davis saying, put this to you, Jacko. When has Madison provided that X factor in the closing moments of the game for us? Well, that's the point. We take him off every time, Eddie. So we don't. We take him off in like the 70th minute, 60th minute, 75th minute, 80th minute. So I don't think there's a discussion to be had. It's kind of a big what if, because we take him off every time. And that's where my joke comes from with Ange, Eddie. Like Ange seems to get like a fetish for taking off Madison in these moments, and that's where that joke comes from for me. Like he never, ever, ever leaves Madison on for the 90 minutes. So Eddie, I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say there. Dude, it's like I don't think you can say when has he, because he's never been given that chance to. He's never been given that chance. SOF saying they don't hand out should have won trophies. Spurs have to get a win on Thursday. Last night reminded me of Zagreb. Spurs actually took a 2-goal lead away. They had more chances to score. Yeah, man. Tough work to be done on Thursday. Big up to you, SOF, though. Really appreciate you at the end of the day. And listen, it's going to be tough work this Thursday night. And I agree. There's, shoulda, woulda, coulda. It is a bit of a shoulda, woulda, coulda. Maybe that's also Artist T was kind of alluding to earlier to an extent. I think the one forward who deserved to stay on, in my opinion, was Son. His balls into the attacking areas were brilliant. He did as well as he could without the overlap. from Udogie. That's fair.
Yep.
Of all the players, just me personally, I think we all feel very differently about the subs. Various people think one person has stayed on, and other people think other guys should have stayed on or went off, blah, blah, blah. I personally am kind of on the Madison camp. I just think Madison was the one that needed to stay on. I would have probably tolerated Sonny being taken off, to an extent, because if what Ange was saying, right, was the left-hand side was tiring, maybe you do bring on, someone with that work rate down the left and then still keep someone like Madison on. And I'd say this as well, just again, I'm not even last year, I was not Madison's biggest defender at all. Whereas this year I have been defending him a bit more. I'd say, the goal that we even scored, Solanke makes the run, does great to hold it up, but Madison still played that, killer pass to Pedro Porro. He still was the guy that I think was, kind of creating those decisive moments in the game that were leading to those chances. And he was the guy that was doing these great half turns, someone that was beating his man and then playing a nice pass to get us moving. And I think he was that creative guy for us, that magic man in the midfield. And I think we needed to keep him on if we wanted to have a better chance of going on to win the game personally. And this is coming from a guy that was by no means Madison's biggest fan last season at the end of the day either. I think I am being pretty fair, towards the guy. But everybody, let us know, please. Drewzilla, I'm seeing you popping in. He's saying, I genuinely think Matters has a problem playing 90 minutes. He drops in and out of games. He's not a consistent threat. And we made chances after he went off. I don't see an issue. I feel like, chances after the chances we made were maybe from Bentancur's header, towards the likes of Van de Ven, but I don't remember any real clear-cut chances once those substitutions came on personally, except for the Van de Ven one. And I think that was down to Bentancur personally. But, fortunately, this just is going to have to be, I think, just differences of opinion on this one. I mean, welcome to name me, another chance other than the Bentancur header towards Mickey Van de Ven. But everybody, do feel free to follow us on Twitter over here. This is the player ratings. We're just going to take a quick reaction, to some of the feedback on this. Dave Vicario, don't think there's too much to be said here. He didn't have too much to do really on the evening. I personally don't think any goalkeeper saves that shot from Ekitike, really. I think that was an unbelievable finish. So I would give Vicario a 6, a 5.
No, I'll give him a 6. Look, he didn't really have too much to do on the evening, really.
Yeah. But let's keep it moving then. Everybody, again, feel free to follow us on Twitter so you can get onto us on these player ratings. Pedro Porro, Dave, I would give him a 7. I went for a 7, 2, and 8 because he scored the goal. And, but for the most part, he's still worried me a little bit defensively in this game. So I don't want to go too far, on the player rating here. I don't want to give him an 8, but thank the Lord he scored that goal. An unbelievable finish, great run into the box, unbelievable technical skill to be able to pull off that finish. So I'd go with a 7 for Pedro, but he does worry me defensively still.
No, look, I think, we got to praise him for his goal. It was a great run. It was a great finish, a cheeky little finish at that. And at parts, he done well enough last night, but he was the cause of the goal for me. Look, it was a ball outside. For me, as a fullback, you show him down the line, knowing that he's got no presence in the box. The minute, what he's looking to do there is cut inside and unleash a shot because he's got no support up with him. It's the only option he has. And Porro gave that up far too easy for him. Now, look, there's question marks around. I think there's 3 or 4 players around him when he unleashed the shot. Could we have done more to get bodies in the way? But the reality is, Porro has to show him on the outside and eliminate the danger. He doesn't. He lets him on the inside far too easy. So, although he scored, I'm going to be fair. Look, he scored, but he also gave away the goal. So, for me, I'm going to give him a 6.
Yeah. And Destiny Udogie, Dave, the other fullback, I thought he did great bombing up and down the wing. I think a much better performance than what we've been used to from the likes of Destiny. So what would you give him? I'd give him kind of a 7 maybe, or a 6. I'm kind of in that range, with Destiny Udogie. I think he was actually all right on the day, and I thought he did a lot better than what he has recently with Sonny. So where do you stand on Destiny's performance?
Look, I thought,
defensively was solid, I thought too.
Yeah, I thought he had a decent enough game yesterday, Jack. In possession, he was the better, than what he has been in recent weeks. Defensively, he was good. But I do maintain in the first half, I do think he was clogging up a lot of the Madison and Sun space that they had to work in. It's clear he was told something at half-time, because if you actually look at the second half, he didn't make them runs into the middle, clogging up Madison space, or even to a degree, always going on the outside, overlapping Son. If you watch it back that second half, a lot of times he actually just stayed back in that left back position and allowed them to work that space. So I think that was a big problem in the first half going forward, but was rectified in the second half.
Um,
I would give him a 7. He was good.
Just want to welcome in Mary W. Big up to you, Mary. How are you? Matters is very slim, maybe lacks the physicality over 90 minutes. I mean, the hair is very thin and slim. It's growing back. Maybe you're onto something there, Mary. Good to see you in the house. Kaylee Davis, morning lads. For me, the match yesterday was among the best of the season, albeit the bar was very low. Hoping we see the very best of the lads next week. Come on, you Spurs. We're still in it, Kaylee. We're still in it. Unfortunately, my happy clapper 3-0 prediction did not come through. One could maybe argue what was deserved, maybe something like that. But we go into next Thursday, still in it, still in the tie, and we'll see what ends up happening. Thanks for being in here with us, Kaylee. I do appreciate it. Dave, we'll keep this moving. On to Romero. Similar kind of ratings for me, like 6, maybe, 7. He had a couple of shaky passes in the beginning, but didn't, really, fill us with confidence. But after that, I thought he was brilliant, in possession. There was some moments of classiness from him. Both him and Bentancur had certain moments where it was just that bit of, I don't know, that South American flair or whatever you call it, where they just, can bring the ball down, play out from under pressure. And I don't really remember any sketchy moments from him defensively for the most part.
Yeah,
so I'd give him like a 6 or a 7.
I almost feel like him and Van de Ven together actually don't get enough credit. Like, we can sit there last night and say they didn't have too much defensively, but the defensive work they done on the halfway line or just below the halfway line was absolutely incredible. The amount of times they got out in front of the striker, nipping that ball away from him, winning the headers to keep us penned in their half. That's still defending at the end of the day. It doesn't matter whether it's on the halfway line or pushed up or back on the edge of their box. They still had a lot to do defensively. And I think the two of them done that absolutely brilliant all night long. I think they bullied, their front line to a large degree, bullied the striker to a large degree all night long. I don't think they get enough credit with the amount of balls they stopped higher up the pitch, and I think that's the big difference. When we've had other centre backs there, we almost dropped the line a lot deeper. We almost allowed them in on our goals a lot more. But with these guys, we can push up higher because they can turn the ball up higher. And when they turn the ball over, the two of them are very good in possession. Romero in possession sometimes last night in tight spaces. I'm looking at him and I'm like, why can't Dom Solanke do that? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Same with Van de Ven to a certain degree. I'm actually going to go to two of them here. I'm going to give both of them I'll give both of them a 7 last night, Jack. I think it's very easy to go. I didn't have a lot to do defensively, while if you're ignoring all the work they did do higher up the pitch to turn the ball over.
Yeah, Van de Ven, Dave. I think you kind of covered it there. I thought he had one challenge that was simply brilliant. I think it was PK or someone got him behind, and he made that Van de Ven challenge that we've seen before. Unbelievable. Came from behind him, swooped away with it, like world-class challenge. Yeah, sorry.
No,
7 or an 8. Yeah, for me, I give him a 7 or an 8. Really, I thought that challenge alone was almost game-saving. This for me, everybody. I'm gonna just quickly get to some people. Romero 5 says Adam Phillip. Let me know. I thought Romero was pretty good on the day. Not my favorite Romero performance. Maybe he was better against Chelsea and Southampton. Jack Johnson bar was Jackson Johnson over the bar on 82 minutes. Oh, okay, yeah, because that was from the Jet Spence cross. To be fair, you're probably right, Drew. And then Tell cross should have been should have been a corner, and Solanke 85 cross. Solanke's cross. Was that earlier on in the game, though, for Johnson? Solanke's cross? I remember he had one in the first half. That was a great cross for Johnson that was cleared away. Half chance, 86. Van de Ven chance in injury time. Probably fair, Drew, especially, the Johnson one was like the best chance of the game. So that actually came immediately after the sub. So I actually will concede to you there, Drew Zilla, on that one, because that Johnson chance for me was just infuriating that he missed that one. Because we even saw him finish a harder one against Southampton, and then that was an even easier chance than the Southampton one, and it was the exact same move, the exact same goal, and somehow he missed it. And so I'd agree with you there, Druzilla. I'd agree with you there. I think I will concede. Bentancur for me, Dave, was my man of the match. I actually struggled to not put in a sneaky 10 there because I don't know if this dude put a foot wrong. Maybe if he had scored from that header, or maybe if the header that he nodded on to Van de Ven ended up going in the back of the net, I probably would have leaned towards like a 10 for Bentancur. I thought this guy was simply brilliant, both in possession,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning of the game. We were complaining about some loose touches. People had a bit of rockiness, some nerves in their game. I can't say that with Bentancur. I thought from minute one, the guy just sort of oozed class. And then also as well, I mean, he was just working like a dog in midfield,
Mm,
winning the ball back, covering for others. I remember one
yeah.
time when Romero was really far out of the back line, trying to get forward or coming back from a set piece. Bentancur was there to cover for him. The guy was just, I thought, brilliant on the day, Bentancur.
Yeah, look, I thought out of possession, he mopped up well, covering the defence and the midfield. Got stuck in last night, mopping up left and right hand side. And I think in possession, I thought it was brilliant. And then, from our corners and free kicks into the opposing box, our offensive set pieces. He got on the end of a couple last night. One went straight down the keeper's throat, and the other off the crossbar. So I thought last night, I think you can make the argument probably our best player on the pitch. I'd give him an 8.
Yeah, I'd give him a 9. I think he was just one goal away from potentially getting a 10 for me. I thought it was bent in class, and I said that a few times during the watch along. Bergvall, Dave, this guy just continues to get so much love. People seem to probably want to give him a higher rating than Bentancur. For me, I think Bentancur had a better game on the day, but Bergvall did not really put much of a foot wrong. And I would give him an 8, something like that, or a 7. Where do you lean on Bergvall? It's unfortunate. That could have been the goal of the season. That shot that he did. I mean, he beat 3 players there with that one move, and then had the audacity to hit it from range like that. And it's just Spurs' luck this season that just doesn't go in. But Bergvall, I'd give him an 8, 7.
I thought Bergvall was pretty good in midfield again. I think, didn't he make one important defensive contribution?
Yeah.
There's a ball across the box ready to be tapped home, and I think, on the counter, and he got involved and he managed to stop it. So credit for that. That was absolutely unbelievable. And I thought, look, again, I thought he was good in midfield, Jack. I thought he was good on the ball as well. Creating havoc, had that unbelievable effort. Do you know what? I'll give him another 8.
Paolo Maratti saying that Bentancur performance last night tells me Biss is getting sold along with Werner in the summer. Well,
Yeah.
Werner, luckily, we don't have to worry about selling. That's going to be RB Leipzig's problem. We can just send him back. John Fitzpatrick, good to see you in the house, sir. It's
Big
been
up,
a while.
John.
How are you, my friend? As well as Adam Phillip. Good to see you. Dave Madison, I'd give him a 7. I think he helped create the goal for Pedro Porro. I think he almost scored himself, from a great move where he fired it with the left foot, and the keeper made a good save. I thought he was just a creative spark in the midfield. Maybe could ask a bit more from him, but like I said, I think he was the guy that was, kind of the number 10 in the game and was creating, chances for Spurs and was the creative spark for us. But I'd give him like a 7, maybe. I don't know if I would give him an 8. Maybe if he scored, I would give him a higher rating, but I would give him a 7.
Yeah, look, I think Madison got stuck in last night. I think in possession, he made some lovely turns in that midfield to evade his marker. It was him that ended up getting the assist for Pedro Porro's goal. I know he did give it. It was him that gave it away in that midfield that led to the goal earlier. Their goal. But I do think it was preventable in terms of if Porro made the right decision defensively. But overall, I think Madison played pretty well. I would give him a 7. Yeah.
And then Sonny. Thought he had a okay day at the office. I don't think it was his worst performance, compared to maybe more recent ones that we've seen. I don't think it was brilliant either. I'd give him like a 5 personally. But maybe people might feel differently on that. Clearly people do. Obviously I posted these player ratings, a bit late, so we only have 14 votes on them, but where do you stand on Sonny? And also, please let me know in the chat, everybody. Where did you rank Sonny's performance? I think a 5 is kind of where I lean on it. Nothing too great, but nothing too disappointing, really.
Yeah, look, when it comes to Sonny, I think...
Oh, he's better than Johnson.
Look, I think Top Muller after the game sort of said yesterday their whole plan was to stop Sonny cutting inside onto his right foot.
They did
And
double
to a
up
large degree last night, they the game plan worked. They doubled up on him, stopped him coming inside and showed him on the outside a lot of the times. But, it was him that did play that ball over the top for Solanke, who played it onto Madison for the goal. I think Son, he also had that effort that was saved pretty well as well. And I think, look, he was growing into the game in the second half when we took him off.
Yeah.
I would not his best game. I'd probably go with a 6, to be honest. 6. Yeah, I'll go with.
Okay. And then for Johnson, personally, I lean towards a 4. Just because I think actually what was funny about him was I think he didn't have he had one really shocking moment on the ball where he just ballooned it out of play from like 30 yards away with 3 touches. But when he did actually touch the ball, I don't think he was that negative or anything like that. I think he did decently at times to keep possession for us. It's just that the guy for me, he doesn't make enough runs in behind. And then also as well, it seemed like he wasn't really showing for the ball, like trying to get onto the ball to make something happen either. And then Ange decided to leave him on the pitch, and he had an excellent chance to be the match winner in a very Brennan Johnson manner, and he ballooned it, skied it over the bar. So I have to give him a 4,
I just
personally.
Look, I just think he was less involved than Son. If I'm comparing the two wingers, I think he had less of an impact on the game. Look, first half, I would argue, he's absolutely anonymous. Second half, I think, look, he was growing into the game in the second half. He's getting into better positions, but, perhaps got more touches on the ball. But the only real memorable moment from him was that cutback from Spence that he ballooned.
Yeah.
Apart from that, he didn't really offer a whole lot last night. And that's, that, like I said in my predicted lineup, that's the last big question I have around him. I think he has changed my opinion that he deserves to be a squad player, moving forward. But he's still not a big game player. And I think for me, that was evident again last night. I've always said I've been consistent with this, Jack. When it comes to big games, I don't think you can trust him. He doesn't do enough.
I also just don't think he worked that hard out of possession either, me personally.
No.
There are plenty of times I still caught him jogging or sort of doing that, pretend jog where he really is basically just walking. And again, I'll say this, I personally think I can run a 10K faster than him. Solanke, I'd also go for like a 4 or a 5. He played a part in the goal. Maybe I think he had a better first half than he did a second half. And that kind of says something to me, because in the first half, he played a part in the goal. And then he also, I think, set up a chance or two for others. But then in the second half, I thought he was pretty anonymous. And I seen, just the Man United highlights from the other night where Højlund was pretty anonymous for them. And then Xerxes comes on and just scores that chance provided by Bruno Fernandes, makes the right run, puts himself at the right place at the right time. It's just not something we're saying about Solanke at the minute. Like, he's not at the right place at the right time often, when chances are being created. And this is kind of my thing. He's not providing that striker's instinct, where he's sniffing out, where to be. He's sniffing out, sort of like a fox in the box in the penalty area. And so I'm kind of struggling with, because he played a part in the goal, and I thought he had an okay first half. But then the second half, I thought he was pretty underwhelming. So I'm leaning towards like a 5 or a 4 here.
Yeah, again, look, I'd probably go with another 4 for Dominic Solanke. Look, I know he made that good run for, the build up to the first goal, but the reality is, he just doesn't give me anywhere near enough of what we need from a striker. I think, when the ball's at his feet, if he can get it under control, I think he makes the wrong decisions off the back of it. But a lot of the times, he struggles to get the ball under control. There was an unbelievable one there last night. He dropped deep, took the ball in, turned the wrong way. If he turned the other way, it's one pass, we're in. You know what I mean? And then last night, there was another one again, another breakaway. I think it was a 3-on-2 or a 4-on-3 or whatever. And he takes too many touches out of the ball. He's so clunky in possession. But then also, the amount of times I see the midfielders pick up the ball, and he just makes his run way too late to get in behind and stuff like that. And then, the last 2 games, there's been crosses coming in from both the left and the right hand side, and he hasn't been able to get near any of them. I think it was a really bad night for Dominic Solanke last night, so I think 4 is fair.
Yeah. Let us know, everybody, though. We're just going to rush through some of these sort of other parts of the Twitter reacts. Spurs have appointed, Dave might be better off here, but Vinay Venkatesham, as chief executive. 44-year-old, starts in summer with responsibility for all operations on and off the pitch. Former Arsenal CEO turned down other major jobs and will be regarded by many as a coup for Spurs. From David Ornstein. Dave, new CEO at Tottenham Hotspur. Does this mean anything at all?
Look, I'm struggling to make, what to make of it, because the club haven't really clarified, exactly what he's coming in to do. Now, I know the job title he's been given and the job title Scott Munn are slightly different. I think there's 2 ways you can look at it. I think someone look at it and go, oh, maybe is he coming in to replace Scott Munn? But I don't think other people look at it and go, no, this is just another role in the restructuring that we're trying to do at that sort of level. Look, some would also make the argument it was him that sort of put the wheels in motion for the likes of Edu and Arteta, and what they've sort of achieved at Arsenal, moving them forward. But I do think it's important to highlight that the majority of his time in football has actually been in commercial roles. It was the same with, he was a part of the Olympics committee and the Paralympics committee,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff as well. So I think maybe he's just more of another Scott Munn to a large degree.
Yeah. We'll obviously talk more on this, and I know Dave has to rush over to Last Word on Spurs, and he'll be talking about that over there. Football T on T, this was those quotes that you were bringing up from Glenn Hoddle. What he's going to be like when he's 23, 24 is going to be frightening from Owen Greaves and Glenn Hoddle. I completely agree on Lucas Bergfall. This was the goal from Pedro Porro, from Johnny H. You can just sort of see the move being created here. Madison, just good play to sort of engineer the space, and then the finish, unbelievable from Pedro Porro on the finish, and also look at the reaction from the fans. Simply brilliant there. Jordan Coy saying, this is incredible, isn't it? And this happens every game with us. And sort of the high risk nature of, playing the style of play that we have, but also when you turn it over in bad areas, this is what can happen. Yeah. And also when you're a team that's playing on the counterattack, when you do win the ball in good areas, you have to punish teams. And this is what they did. They had players that could get up and down that would, try to hurt us this way. And luckily we dealt with it pretty well. But that is sometimes the risk of doing, that sort of play. Ange Postecoglou is convinced the club have a mole inside the club with regards to injury news getting out to the public. There's no doubt we've got a leak inside the club. I don't know why. It doesn't help us. We've narrowed it down. I've got a fair idea where it's coming from. It certainly doesn't help us on game days. It's sometimes half-truths and sometimes more. You'd like to think that everyone within our camp is working with us rather than against us. And he says Decky has trained today with the players who didn't play last night. He looked really good. He's not available this weekend, though, and he won't start on Thursday because he's been out for so long, but he is looking good. Wilson Odebear is okay and also trained today. Dave, anything to say on Ange Postecoglou finding the mole?
Well, look, I think, there's definitely a mole there somewhere, right? How many people do you hear going, my source, my source, my source? You know what I mean? So it's clear that there are moles. Now, look, I was under the impression that that's one of the reasons they got rid of David Pleat, right? Because they thought he was, one that was leaking a lot of information. But, listening to Postecoglou's press conference, they do have a fair idea who they think it is. He says they have sort of narrowed it down. So it'll be very interesting. I don't think we'll ever get the name of who it is personally, but interesting. And look, at the end of the day, it doesn't help. It's great to have information and stuff like that to a certain degree, but it doesn't help. Like something like Odebear with the hamstring injury, you are sort of helping out the opposition manager to a large degree, by leaking that news, in the build up to a game and stuff like that. So.
This is one of the new social media trends, by the way. I think AI has been creating, action figures. So this is the Daniel Levy action figure, if you are looking for one, just in case. I'm also
used to have a go kart like that when I was a kid, the pedal ones.
I'm also just as well to bring up some other funny ones, but I know Dave is pressed for time here, everybody, so I do have to rush through these.
Keep going.
Okay, I know. I didn't want to give you that opportunity. Oop, clicked on the wrong one there. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, everybody. It's mostly just me just posting pictures of myself and pictures of Seattle, but I do tend to retweet some funny things. IrishHotspur, yeah, that was just the player ratings there. Again, look out for, the player ratings, after every game. Wanted to get you guys involved on those. Billy saying ref was shit, should have capitalized on that second half spell and poor finishing ultimately cost us. Changes could have been quicker too. We're not dead yet though. Yids. I think that's a fair summary from our man Billy.
Yeah.
And he also said, I know he's not shown a lot, but I have a feeling sending this was weird. I saw a lot of this last night, everybody.
Yeah.
Feel free to let me know if you guys feel differently about this. Personally, I have seen very little from Matisse Tell to be in any way inclined to bring him in for 65 million. I mean, Jesus. But Billy's saying, I know he's not shown a lot, but I have a feeling sending Tell back would prove to be a major error late down the line. Hope he stays, and I think he'll be great next season under a new manager. That posted article today is just an opinion, so fingers crossed. I mean, Dave, no disrespect to Matisse Tell. Maybe he will be good, later on, once he gets an opportunity with a different manager and gets more playing time. But with the time he's been given at Spurs, I don't think he's ripped up any trees at all.
Again, I find it a little bit hard to understand the opinion because we sit here and moan that we want trophies. We sit here and protest because we
Johnson has
want
shown more.
trophies. We want managers out because we want trophies. And then we protect players who haven't come here. Look, at the end of the day, Matisse Tell wanted out of Bayern to go and play football and had a point to prove. He's been given a fair crack at it and a fair run. And he hasn't produced. I'm sorry, but he just hasn't. Look, I get in the long run you might regret it, but I look at what Tottenham need here and now, and you add what we usually spend in the summer transfer window, which averages out just over 100 million, it's already 50% of your budget gone. And is that one signing going to make massive strides to your squad moving into next season? I
Yeah.
don't think it is. So for me, I think you got to take it to where the club is, where we're at right now, and I don't think it's the right move to move for Matisse Tell. At the end of the day, he's played off the wing, he's played up front, and I haven't seen that, and that suggests to me that we should make that purchase. I question, right now, is he better than Solanke? No. Is he better than Son? No. Is he better than Johnson? No. Is he better than Udeburn? No. So for me, I really struggle with that opinion. Look, I am reaching out to Billy, and we will be getting him on soon, so maybe I might ask him on that one, because again, it's like we sit here and moan we don't win trophies, and then we're going, oh, let's bring in a 19-year-old and he's going to be the guy to deliver it. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. At the end of the day, there was no better opportunity ever to come into this football club and make a name for yourself than coming in here in January with the amount of injuries that we had, to be able to impact and show what you can do. And I'm sorry, but he's failed. The reason why we haven't kicked on is because he hasn't been the right solution to our problems.
I agree with all that. Paulo Moratti saying, ain't that the same Vinay who signed an imaginary company for one of Arsenal's sponsorships? That's hilarious if that's the case. No wonder we brought him in, Paulo Moratti. Scotty Hynum, good to see you in the house, sir. Really do appreciate you supporting the channel as a member. Artist T, I think referring to Solanke, bang average. Yeah, that was probably the way I would describe his performance. Pretty bang average, Artist T. And then Paulo Moratti saying, for me, I don't rate Tell. He's good in Europe, where technical quality shines and easy fouls are given to players, but domestically the league is just too physical for him. I can agree with that. I just again, I don't think he's played terribly, but when he did have chances, in the beginning of the, when in the beginning of his spell with us, he had a run of games, and I don't think he did very much. And he had opportunities to score. One of those games, I remember, I think it was Liverpool, right? He had plenty of chances to score and just wasn't doing it. He just very, very tame shots. Wasn't really testing the goalkeeper at all when he was given opportunities. I just don't think he even looked any better than Solanke. Not even close, actually. And also, I think off of the ball, he doesn't work that hard. He looks like a guy who's not that inclined, to press or anything like that. So I've seen very little to be encouraged by personally with Matisse Tell. That's just the way I see it, though. Billy saying Ange can't handle any more Paulo Keefe bombas. He also saying, does this mean anything significant? Yeah, he's referring to the Vinay thing, but we covered that there. Hotspur report saying play the kids on Sunday. The second leg is effing massive. Yeah. Dave, I mean, would you make huge rotations, or would you kind of do a hybrid sort of situation on Sunday?
No, I make huge
Big
rotations.
Yeah.
You give the kids and the squad players an opportunity to show their work.
Yeah. Mickey Van de Ven on the second leg. It was a great interview, by the way. I did see this interview. If you see what we showed today and how we dominated, yeah, we have the confidence to go there and win there. I really liked his interview from Mickey Van de Ven. And Sash saying, this first leg, let's hope it's similar vibes. Let's hope it's similar vibes.
Yeah.
That's what made the thumbnail for this one.
Hopefully it doesn't start off the way the second leg started off where we went.
True. Well, it's always drama in these European competitions. Billy saying on the plus side, Udogi was back to his old self and Bentancur's best game in a while. They were there for the taking, gutted not to be ahead. Yeah. I think another good summary there from Billy. Fantastic tonight, says Spurs Express. I thought he was bent in class. HLTCO, the Crystal Palace fan account, saying, I love watching Lucas Bergvall play. He's so brave and confident on the ball for someone who's still a teenager. He's technically superb. I think that's where everybody stands on. For an 18-year-old, the guy carries himself really well, very, very brave, but also can pull off real magic, and has the confidence to do so. This was kind of from Lily White Rose. Might save it for a deeper discussion another time. He was just sort of saying, that he's defending Solanke. This is coming from a big Solanke fan myself. To say, 19 goals and assists from 36 games, it sounds good when you look at it on the stats, but you think about it, right? That's like goals and assists combined. And if you're really I think, let's say a decent, good striker, you would actually be hoping for about a 0.5, sort of ratio for goals to games, and that's like what most decent strikers are able to accomplish. So if he had 19 goals from 36 games, I think we could look at it a bit differently. But the fact that it's 19 goals and assists, I think sort of glosses over, the stats a little bit. But he did say that he scored in the big games versus Liverpool, Chelsea, and Villa twice, Newcastle, and United. So maybe compared to other players who don't score in the big games, Dominic Solanke's goals have come from there. But I think that might be a good discussion for Dave and I on another occasion, unless, Dave, you had anything to add to that. You know what I mean, though? Like, I think it's like abusing the stats a little bit here, because if I think of great strikers who've had, consistent goal ratios, it's usually above the 0.5 mark. Even his last season with Bournemouth, right? He played in the Premier League. He had 20 goals or something like that, 21 goals in the Premier League. So that would be a ratio above 0.5, right? So that's what I'm kind of looking for, in my strike.
Yeah, no, look, everyone knows my feelings on Dominic Solanke recently. I've given him every opportunity to be, prove to me he's the right guy. And I just think there's so much lacking for him to ever really be that guy moving forward. And look, we can bring up all these stats to defend these players. I'm not being funny, but in years gone by, no one had to bring up stats to defend Son. No one had to bring up stats to defend Kane and players like that. The reality is, when you have people defending them or people criticising them, it usually means they're bang average.
Billy saying, have to credit the club for finally doing something to promote atmosphere and permitting drums and megaphones. Unfortunately, it was for the Frankfurt fans, though. Jeez.
The club's efforts, were a disgrace in terms of trying to, do something for that game. Should have been a massive tifo in that stand.
I won't read this one, but I think you guys can get how I feel about sometimes when Brennan Johnson is on the ball from THFC. Andre Lucas Bergfeld saying, great team performance. Disappointed not to have gotten a win. Work to do in the second leg. Great work from our man Lucas, but he is absolutely right. Backup keepers against Spurs.
Yeah.
It was Tim Krul vibe all over again, Dave. It was Tim Krul all over.
Yeah.
This one was also brilliant from Maddie. Eintracht Frankfurt take the lead. That was Dave and I in the first few minutes there. That really was. Spurs Express, Postecoglou confirms that Wilson Odegaard is okay and did train today. Jay Harris saying, tell booked for complaining at the referee for incorrectly awarding a goal kick when Spurs should have had a corner. Again, just the referees, just nothing. We can't get a break. He's validating, or, he's just making an appeal for what was a wrong decision, and the referee gives him a yellow card for it. It's just, you can't get a break with these refs. So extremely underwhelmed by Solanke tonight. Again, from Alex. Invert the chat GPT says, brilliant decision to start Pedro Porro, and I think it did pay off because he did score the goal. Cody Mack saying, if the goal is to progress, then a draw at home is simply not a good result. However, at least we played some football tonight. One of the better performances we've had in a long time. It will be very difficult in the second leg. Decent summary from Cody Mack, you'd say.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely spot on. I think that's the way many people sort of feel coming out of that game, that, a draw simply isn't just good, isn't good enough to see us over the two legs. Look, we all need to be pleasantly surprised by Tottenham next Thursday if we want to get over the line. A heart back to our European array record down the years. It's not great.
And then Carly saying that first goal is a copy and paste of the chance he missed tonight. Brendan Johnson's one against Southampton. Johnny H saying, what a fantastic effort from Spurs. Lucas Bergfeld, who receives the ball from Sonny, beats two players and hits a sweet right foot that cannons off the bar. He was so unlucky. The way that ball flew as well. It's just
an unbelievable shot. So unlucky.
And then shocker from Spurs Global. Is it a shocker, right? The fact that the backup.
Sure. You go back to Bournemouth a few years ago. Travers, unknown Irish goalkeeper, steps in, forges a career off the back of one game. Madness. Unbelievable. Saved everything that day.
Lily White Rose, Fabio Paratici at the game tonight, sitting with some club legends. And he's on the phone, Dave.
Not interacting with them. But yeah, he's on the phone. He's working away. Look, I think, it's been reported that Spurs are trying to convince Paratici, to come back. So be interested to see what happens there.
What a finish from Carly.
Yeah, it's beautiful from Porro. Beautiful flick.
And then Billy saying, bit bored of everyone at the club asking the fans to step up for Thursday. They always have and always will. When is it your turn? Completely agree with Billy there. This is, again, more people just, I guess sort of really defending Tell. I personally really have to disagree. especially with ONTHFC. I think to get upset with Ange over this one is just future world beater. I mean, that's a bit far, especially with how little I've seen from the guy. David H. saying lack of a potent striker, decent in-game management, and fading sun has cost us here. We've got a chance in Frankfurt, but it will be tough. I kind of disagree with your fellow David Harris. I think lack of a potent striker, agree with there, but decent in-game management. Like I said, personally, I think the substitutions should happen sooner, and I think he made some of the wrong ones. And then I don't know, like Son, like I don't think was the problem. I think Johnson was more of a problem than Son was in this game. So kind of disagree with your fellow David Harris there.
I think what he means by a fading Son is like if we had Son 2 years ago, he would have ripped them to part and probably buried them last night.
Yeah. 55 million of the King's finest pounds, by the way. This is Brendan Johnson's first touch there is a crime against humanity there. That's just a crime against football. The first touch is a crime against football. I am sorry.
What did I do?
Look at this pass here. It's not even skipping.
Oh, it's 10 yards up in the air. There's not even anyone around him. There's not even anyone near him.
And he balloons it, and then the second touch, and each touch.
See, this is what I'm talking about, Jack. This is what I'm talking about, right? When you've got averageness like this, it makes attacking look difficult, right? There's no one near him here when he touches that. That should just be one touch out of the foot, and look to get that into the three guys running in at the back post there. That's all. It can be such a simple game at times.
Frankfurt fans, 15 minutes before the match started, they were like this the whole entire game. I said this before. They are, I think, in my memory, some of the best away fans in Germany. And then the German fan culture is, I think, regarded as pretty much the best in Europe, next to the Turkish fans. They are just, very consistently, just in unison. And they're just kind of known more for just, the constant singing. They get well oiled up usually before the games. I've been a part of it, myself. I had a great time when I studied abroad in Berlin, and I do remember the Frankfurt fans very, very well. I remember them very, very well. They left a lasting impression. Came from the lane, wants to give Bergvall a contract for life. And then also, by the way, maybe just something to take a look at. Frank's Football. I know Dave has recommended these to me before. Some great looking jumpers there, ones that maybe you guys could take a look at. Yeah. And I think we'll have to wrap it up there because Dave does have to get off to last word on Spurs. Thank you guys for all the support. Thank you guys for all the support yesterday, following us over to this stream. As always, with games like this, there's going to be a variety of opinions about things. So, we're not going to claim to be right about any of it. So I appreciate you guys hearing us out and giving your guys' feedback and your own thoughts on the game. DB, thanks for joining us. And he's saying, had you guys on in the background. Good show, chaps. Thank you very much, DB. Appreciate the support that you've been showing us, my man. Dave, any final words from yourself?
No, look, roll on to the weekend, see if we can pick up 3 points, keep a good feel factor heading into next Thursday night. It's what it's all about now. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Really appreciate it, guys.
And we'll see you all on Sunday for the Wolves game. It's the preparation for the Frankfurt game. Also, maybe a bit of a palate cleanser before we descend into more madness, the following Thursday night. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the support that you've been showing us. And